Hi, this is Mashnu, and here is a game from the Chess Olympiad round number 8 between Emanuel Berg from Sweden, a Swedish grandmaster rated 2576, and he's playing against a Nigerian player called Oluwafemi Balogun. Beautiful name. He's unrated. Mr. Balogun doesn't have a FIDE rating, and I think that this must be, well, perhaps quite insecure for his opponents, because when you meet a player who doesn't have a rating, you don't have any idea about his playing strength. I mean, someone who doesn't have a FIDE rating is not automatically a weak player. Perhaps he lives in a country where there are not many FIDE tournaments organized. So this Mr. Balogun from Nigeria is one of those players who we don't know how strong they are. So it must be a good concentration exercise for every rated player to play this kind of games. They must really stay well concentrated, because you never know what from the other side is going to come. Let's have a look at the game. Grandmaster Emanuel Berg opens with e4, and we have a Sicilian defense. Knight f3, d6, d4, c takes d, knight takes d, knight to f6, knight to c3, now a6 and f4. So already it becomes clear that white wants to play on the king side, and black tries to have influence in the center with e5. These are moves that have been played thousands of times, perhaps even millions, I don't know. Knight to f3 now, knight b to d7. Now perhaps you ask, okay, why not playing this knight to c6? Well, this knight on d7, if it goes to d7, it wants to go to c5, where it has pressure against e4. That's the idea of knight to d7. Knight to d7, a4, bishop to e7, preparing to castle kingside, bishop to d3, same idea, castle kingside, and now knight to c5. The king on g1 goes out of this diagonal, so not waiting for queen to b6, so king to h1, e takes f4, bishop takes f4. Bishop to g4, pinning the knight on f3 now, and the queen goes out of the pin, queen to d2. The rook from a8 is brought to the most common place in this Sicilian defense, to c8 on the half open c file. Rook a to e1 now. White continues to bring pieces to the center and the king side. That's where he wants to attack. And now rook to e8 is played. White's knight go to d4. Notice that there is an interesting square here on f5, perhaps for the knight. And here black played knight to e6, and perhaps this is not a very strong move, since black needs to find play on the queen side. And with knight to e6, he's actually offering to trade one of his best developed pieces, this knight on c5. Instead of knight to e6, perhaps queen to b6 would be an idea. Attacking the b2 pawn, if here b3, then taking with the knight on d3. At the same time, the queen attacks the knight on d4, so queen takes d3 is more or less forced, and then queen to c5 can pressurize once more this knight on c3. So this would be a way for black to try to find some initiative on the queen side. Now in the game, knight to e6 was played, and white didn't want to have his bishop on f4 under attack, so he went to e3. The knight went back to c5 now, and white plays h3. The bishop goes to e6, and here white occupies this important square f5 with knight to f5. Now black didn't want to have this knight there. That is very well placed. So he chopped it off with bishop takes f5, rook takes f5 now, and now he keeps trading pieces on d3, and also this is not a very good decision, I find, since he's trading once more his active knight on c5 for this bishop that is not really forming any threat. And after this exchange, knight takes d3, c takes d3, if we look at this position, we see a clear situation of an attacker against a defender. White has his pieces placed on in an attacking constellation, and black is defending. The idea of white to attack here is bishop to g5 and knight to d5 to attack this f6 knight. The rook can go to f1, eventually the queen can go to f2, so all the power will be against this f6 point. That's, let's say, the main plan. Now it's not easy to find an active play for black in this position. He actually shouldn't have traded this active pieces that he had and being left over with only passive pieces. Let's have a look at how the game continues. Queen to d7 now, bishop to d4, queen to e6, now queen to g5. So a slight different plan than I mentioned before. It's not the bishop going to g5, but the queen going to g5 and the bishop to d4, and this is actually better in the sense that now g7 starts playing a role as well. The knight is not allowed to move there from f6 because of mate on g7. So we have at this point two targets, 2 points where the pressure is increased on f6 and on g7 as well. h6 by black, queen to g3, staying on the g file, king to h7, trying to defend, eventually by placing a rook on g8 after this. Now knight to d5, so now white has almost all his pieces into the attack. Rook to g8, and here white trades his knight for one of the defenders. Knight takes e7. This at first sight might go against the principle of trading an active piece against a passive piece, and that's true, but these principles are not laws that must be followed always. Actually, white has a very good reason now for trading on e7, and that is that now one of the defenders of f6 is gone after this. So after knight takes e7, queen takes e7, queen to f4, white increases the pressure now on f6. If the knight moves, then f7 is going to fall. Rook to c7, rook to f1. Look at all these pieces working together of white. All the pieces on the f file and on this diagonal of the bishop. Now there is no way to prevent to lose some material. White is threatening to take on f6. So he moves the knight away, and now rook takes f7, and things start getting really nasty. Queen to e6, rook takes c7, knight takes c7, and now white chooses for the most simple way to win this game, and that is to actually place by placing the queen on f7. Black must to make a choice, either to enter a lost endgame by trading queens, because if queen takes f7, rook takes f7, the knight on c7 is attacked, and if it moves, then b7 falls, and actually everything will collapse, because this rook on g8 must stay defending g7, that is attacked by the bishop, and at that point also by the rook on the 7th rank. And the other option is to move the queen away, but in that case there is a beautiful finish, and that's what happened in the game. Queen to c8 was played, and the next move is a beauty. Queen to f6. I'm sorry, rook to f6. Rook to f6, threatening a checkmate. The threat is this. Let's say black plays here knight to e8 to attack the rook with the knight. Then this is a checkmate. Queen on g6 check, king goes there, only plays, and now a queen sacrifice. And after g takes h6, rook takes h6 is checkmate. There is no way to prevent this. And black resigned here, of course. Actually, the most instructive part of this game is, I think, not one blunder or big mistake, but actually the way that black didn't look for active play on the queen side, and how he also traded active pieces against passive pieces. So the result was that white remained with his well-positioned attacking pieces against only passive and defensive pieces of black. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time on YouTube. Goodbye.